The first time I saw the planet Altheria from my ship, it looked like a swirling jewel suspended in the void, a tapestry of emerald forests, shimmering seas, and vast metallic cities that glimmered like constellations scattered across its surface. I had been traveling through uncharted sectors of the galaxy for years, charting star systems and encountering alien civilizations, but Altheria was unlike anything I had ever seen. Its beauty was almost hypnotic, a siren song of colors and light that called to something deeper within me. I had been sent as part of a diplomatic mission, ostensibly to establish trade relations with the Altherians, but whispers of the planet's enigmatic royal family had reached every corner of the galaxy. Chief among them was the princess, a figure shrouded in mystery and legend. They said she had never chosen a companion, rejecting countless suitors from across the empire. Entire fleets had traveled to Altheria with hopes of winning her favor, only to leave empty-handed. Some claimed her heart was unreachable, others believed she possessed powers beyond comprehension. I had never been a man of high ambition, but there was something irresistible about the unknown. Perhaps it was curiosity, or perhaps fate, that guided my ship into Altherian orbit that fateful day. Upon landing, I was greeted by the city's grand gates, towering structures of silver and crystal that hummed with energy. Altherians moved gracefully through the streets, their forms elegant and slightly translucent, their eyes reflecting hues of sapphire and violet. They regarded me with polite curiosity, their gestures precise, almost ceremonial. I could feel their intelligence, the awareness behind every movement. I had never felt so acutely observed. A royal envoy escorted me to the palace, a structure that floated above the city like a fragment of the sky itself. Suspended on anti-gravitational fields, its spires pierced the clouds, and waterfalls cascaded from platforms that defied physics. The princess awaited in the central throne room, a space of crystalline light and shifting holographic patterns that danced across the walls. And then I saw her. She stood atop a platform of levitating crystal, her presence commanding yet serene. Her hair, a cascade of silver that shimmered like liquid starlight, framed a face both alien and impossibly beautiful. Her eyes, were pools of amethyst, deep and endless, as if they held the galaxy within them. For a moment, I felt the weight of every story I had ever heard about her, every tale of rejection, every legend of solitude. She looked at me, and in that instant, it felt as though the world had contracted to the space between us. "Welcome to Altheria," she said, her voice melodic, carrying both authority and curiosity. "I am Princess Lythera." "Thank you, Princess," I replied, bowing slightly, though every instinct screamed at me to stand tall, to meet her gaze fully. The court was filled with advisors, generals, and scholars, all observing the exchange. Yet none dared approach her, and none seemed to meet her eyes directly. There was a tension in the room, a silent acknowledgement of her power. And then she spoke to me, directly, as if the universe itself had chosen me as her confidant. "You are different from the others," she said, stepping closer. "I sense it. Tell me, why have you come?" I swallowed, unsure how much truth I should reveal. "To understand your world," I said finally. "And perhaps, to learn from it." She tilted her head, studying me with an intensity that made my chest tighten. There was a moment of silence, and then she smiled faintly. "Few speak without agenda. You speak with honesty. That is rare." Thus began my immersion into Altheria's hidden realms. Over the following days, I was granted access to places no outsider had ever seen, libraries that floated in midair, archives that stored knowledge in crystallized thought forms, gardens where plants sang in harmonic resonance. Everywhere I went, I felt her presence, sometimes observing from a distance, other times silently joining me as I explored. Yet the more I learned, the more I understood the burden she carried. Lythera was not merely a princess, she was the guardian of her people, the final arbiter of disputes, the embodiment of their collective will. Her loneliness was palpable, a weight she bore with quiet grace. Generations of suitors had failed because they sought her as a prize, not as a person. It was during one of these explorations that our bond began to deepen. We ventured to the shimmering forest, a vast expanse of bioluminescent flora where the air itself seemed alive with energy. As we walked beneath the glowing canopy, she spoke of her fears, her responsibilities, the isolation that came with her station. "I have watched countless lives pass through these halls," she confessed. "Many sought my favor, all with intent or ambition. None saw me, only the title I carry. And so I chose no one." I listened, feeling an unexpected surge of empathy. "But perhaps you simply haven't met someone who sees you, Princess," I said carefully. Her eyes met mine, and for the first time, there was a flicker of something unspoken, a spark that transcended words. "Perhaps," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Perhaps." That night, the palace held a grand banquet in my honor. Music echoed through the crystalline halls, and Altherian cuisine shimmered with flavors that seemed to defy earthly senses. Yet despite the revelry, all attention was on her. Courtiers and dignitaries watched her every move, but she moved as though the crowd did not exist, her gaze fixed intermittently on me. I could feel the tension in the air. They had never allowed anyone to approach her heart, yet here I was, a human stranger, standing amidst centuries of tradition and expectation. The turning point came unexpectedly. A rival faction within the empire, opposed to the influence of outsiders, attempted a subtle coup during a council meeting. Security alarms flashed, and the palace shimmered with defensive shields. I found myself running alongside Lythera through corridors that twisted and shifted with the palace's anti-gravitational systems. "We are not safe here," she said, her usual calm replaced by urgency. "If they succeed, Altheria will fall into chaos." I offered my hand, and without hesitation, she took it. In that simple act, a bond was sealed not of duty, but of trust. Together, we navigated the labyrinthine halls, coordinating with loyal guards to secure the palace. At one point, I looked at her, and in the midst of chaos, she laughed a sound like crystal chimes, and it was unlike anything I had ever heard. When the threat was neutralized, we found ourselves alone in the observation tower, overlooking the city bathed in starlight. She turned to me, her expression soft but resolute. "You faced danger without fear," she said. "Most would have fled, yet you stayed." "Why?" "Because I wanted to understand you," I replied honestly. "Not as a princess, not as a legend, but as Lythera." Her eyes glimmered with emotion, something between relief and wonder. "Then perhaps, the time has come." She stepped closer, her gaze unwavering. "I have chosen no one until now, yet I feel that you are different. That you see me, truly, in a way no one else has." I could hardly believe what I was hearing. The stories, the myths, the warnings, they all faded in the presence of her sincerity. I reached for her hand, feeling warmth and energy flow through our touch. "What happens now?" I asked softly. "Now," she said, her voice steady, "we must navigate a new path. One forged not by tradition, but by choice." The following weeks were a whirlwind. Together, we traveled the breadth of the empire, meeting its people and earning their trust. Some were skeptical, others inspired, but slowly, the bonds we forged began to reshape Altheria's future. I learned their ways, their science, their philosophy, and in return, I shared my experiences from distant worlds. Each day deepened our connection, bridging not just hearts, but entire worlds. It was not without challenges. Some factions resisted, fearing change. Some nights were filled with doubt, and some moments of solitude tested the strength of our bond. But through it all, Lythera and I faced the galaxy together, forging a partnership based on respect, trust, and an unspoken understanding that transcended species. One evening, As the twin moons of Altheria rose over the horizon, Lythera turned to me on the palace balcony, her eyes reflecting the celestial light. "You changed my world," she said. "Not because of power, or diplomacy, or even love, but because you saw me as I am. That is a choice few can make. And I choose you." I felt the enormity of her words, the weight of centuries of solitude melting away in an instant. "And I choose you," I said. In that moment, the galaxy seemed to pause. Stars shimmered brighter, the city below sparkled like a sea of diamonds, and a future once uncertain now stretched before us, limitless and full of possibility. The legend of the alien princess who chose no one had ended, not with grandeur or spectacle, but with the quiet certainty of two beings finally finding each other across the vastness of space. And as I stood beside her, hand in hand, I knew that whatever challenges awaited, we would face them together. For the first time, Altheria's future and my own was no longer defined by legend or expectation, but by choice, courage, and the boundless power of connection.